So after a month-long break from Murata, we're finally going to be getting some One Punch Man action this upcoming week, and since the Monster Association arc and Garo's arc is fully wrapped up to this point, it kind of begs the question, where do we go from here, right? Well, in today's video, I wanted to talk about some of the things that we might see happen in the upcoming chapter as we transition into the next major arc of the story. But first, really quick, if you guys enjoy One Punch Man and One Punch Man related content, then look no further because I post One Punch Man content multiple times a week. I do One Punch Man discussions, analysis, chapter reviews, and I'm actually one of the first YouTubers that gets a chapter review out as soon as it's released. So please make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on so you can be the first to know when a chapter is released. But enough of that, let's get right into the video. So in chapter 170, we left off with Garo and Bang finally being on good terms, and it appeared that Garo was finally on the good side. He didn't hate heroes anymore, and he didn't have all this malice in his heart. And the chapter actually ends with Saitama and Geno scouring through the rubble of the battlefield, looking for like food and things from his trashed apartment. And that's the last thing that we see before the chapter ends. But for those of you with a keen eye or that have read the webcomic, we notice that there's this like black fuzzy thing behind a rock in the distance while Saitama and Genos are looking for stuff. So I won't exactly go into what exactly that black fuzzy thing is right now because I don't want to hit on spoilers yet. But what's most likely going to be the first thing that we see in this upcoming chapter is kind of like the world's reaction to this enormous event, this huge fight that created all of this destruction and like totally trashed the city. And we can assume that there's gonna be a lot of people blaming the Hero Association for all the collateral damage and holding them accountable for it. So we might be focusing on the Hero Association, trying to do damage control here and deal with the fact that the public is starting to lose faith in the Hero Association. And along with that, we'll probably visit some of the S-Class heroes that were involved in the battle and see kind of how they've been holding up now that everything's kind of calmed down and they've recovered from their injuries. I specifically want to see how Tatsumaki's doing because she like definitely took some of the biggest damage out of everybody else. And I also want to see how some of the minor characters like Moomin Rider have been holding up because although they didn't get directly involved in the fighting, they definitely saw a lot of crazy things happen, and it'd be nice to kind of get a feel of what their perspective was throughout all of this. And on top of that, we might get an update on the rankings of the S-Class because as we know, a lot of them went through some major fights and performed some insane feats. So there's bound to be some kind of rearranging of the order of the S-Class, or at least I hope so because it's definitely due for an updating. Like for example, I don't think Puri Puri Prisoner should be at the very bottom. I think maybe Tank Top Master takes up that role. And seeing as how Bang's now retired, they're going to be looking for a new S-Class member to take his spot. Obviously not at the top where he was, but somewhere at the bottom. And I definitely don't think that Atomic Samurai deserves to be as high as he is now. I for one would like to see heroes like Child Emperor, Zombie Man, even Puri Puri Prisoner get bumped up in the rankings based off of all the things they did to assist everybody else and act as support for everybody else throughout the arc, even though they didn't do any direct fighting after a certain point. So now I want to get a little bit more specifically into what's going on with Saitama after this. And now I do have to warn you guys that I will be going into webcomic spoilers, so definitely be careful in the latter part of this video. So as we all know, Saitama's apartment got completely destroyed, so he's going to be in search for a new place. Well, before he does that, while Saitama and Genos were scurrying through the rubble of everything as we saw at the end of chapter 170, again we see that fuzzy black looking thing hiding behind a rock, and what this thing actually is more than likely Overgrown Rover, who's reverted to this like puppy sized form. And what ends up happening is that Saitama ends up finding him and keeping him as a pet. Now he also ends up finding Black S, and he also kind of ends up keeping him as a pet as well, but I kind of don't think that's the direction the manga is going to be going in anymore. I think he's just going to be keeping Overgrown Rover, but I do think that Black S made it out of it alive. There was probably one of his cells that were left over, and he's going to be spending a lot of time trying to regain the trillions of cells that he lost. Now after Saitama finds Overgrown Rover, he ends up finding an actual place to live afterwards because he ends up staying in the living quarters that are at the Hero Association that are designated for certain heroes. And this is also when we're going to be finding out that Saitama is now in the A class at the very bottom. Now I'm not sure if he's going to make it directly to, you know, the A class like he did in the webcomic. Maybe he just ends up being like the top of the B class, like ranked 1 of the B class, but he's definitely in for a huge bump in his rankings, although it definitely deserves to be a lot higher. But we can assume that he's not going to be getting most of the credit of all the things that he did in this arc. So I think the farthest furthest that this upcoming chapter is going to go is kind of touch base with a lot of people and the outside world as they react to this, whole huge Monster Association event, and let us know kind of how Saitama is doing. Let us check out his new apartment really quick and kind of help set up the next upcoming arc, which for those of you that are webcomic readers is the Psychic Sisters arc, where it focuses heavily on Tatsumaki and Fubuki, where Fubuki is hiding Psycho somewhere and they end up facing off because they're kind of disputing of whether or not they should like kill her or still keep her safe like Fubuki wants to. And without spoiling too much, we are definitely going to be getting some more insane fights in this little mini arc, so I'm very much excited for that. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think we're going to be seeing in the upcoming chapter of One Punch Man? Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. I'm very curious to know. I'll definitely make sure to read as many as I can. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and please subscribe. Once the chapter is released, best believe I'm going to have a review out almost immediately after it comes out, so please make sure to have notifications on so you know as soon as that video drops. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.